I believe God created her to be a girl.
Yes.
And I don't doubt that she had gender dysphoria and it was a real thing. I don't believe it was the right thing for her to start to live as a man. At some point, Hannah started using testosterone. We found syringes in her room in my home that
Right.
I'm her caregiver. I'm handing her her medication each day. And yet therapists, doctors, somehow behind my back had arranged to get her testosterone. And then she was able to move into the transitional home.
Wow.
So that's where she relapsed, and it's dangerous to relapse after being clean because that's when the system's so sensitive, and it was accidental. She didn't make it. My husband too, somebody told him when she was young like that, your daughter's gonna die. Just a beautiful Christian woman just out of the blue. And he's like, oh, okay. And he didn't think anything of it. It wasn't insulting. It wasn't nothing. Just prayed in and out to sleep for the next 2 hours. And then I got a phone call. And I wouldn't have heard the buzzing on my phone. It was on silent unless I was awake. But I answered the phone and somebody said, I'm so-and-so from the transitional housing. I said, yes. Silence. Is Hannah okay? She went by the name Alejandro. And he said, no, she's not. He said, is she alive? I said, no, she's not.
Hello, BS Squad. Welcome to the Between the Sundays podcast. We are so excited to have you guys with us. We have a special treat for you guys today. It is an interview day. And I am so pumped to introduce one of my friends. She does not like the spotlight, so this is a real labor of love on her part. But her story has inspired me, and I know it'll inspire you. But this is a woman who has a great family. She is a mom. She homeschools. She's got musical talents, and she is always trying to follow Jesus in real life, which is kind of the main point of our podcast. So she's perfect for it. But she has been through very hard seasons, just like a lot of you out there. But specifically, she has had a daughter who overdosed, and she has walked that road. And not only that, but her daughter also was a trans, which I think we have talked about here. But she brings so much humanity and Christ-like love into this story. So I know that this is going to add value to any of you out there who maybe don't have a full understanding, or maybe you're walking that road as a parent and you're like, how do I show my child love but also walk in truth? So buckle up. We are going to have just a real, raw, honest conversation, and I know you're going to love Joy as much as I do. So let me introduce you to Joy Cruz over here. Yes.
Hi.
How are you doing this morning?
Good. It's really good to be here.
Yes. We've prayed, and we've just asked the Lord to be with us through this entire conversation. And so I want you guys to kind of get to know Joy a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're from London originally.
England.
Yes. Which you can hear in that. I always, like, when we first started talking, our daughters are in gymnastics together. And when I heard your soft voice, I was like, that doesn't sound like from here. You have a very gentle, soft voice. I love it.
I was 12 when I moved here, but people still ask me where I'm from.
Yes. Yeah. And so you moved here. And what was that like growing up? Give us a little bit of your growing up background.
Moving here was really hard. I have a great family. My parents were wonderful. There were 4 of us siblings. Moving at 12 to a foreign country was really hard. And so I sunk into a really difficult time, but I made it through.
Was there a bit of like culture shock coming from?
Culture shock, because I went to school in a place where a teacher walked in the room and everybody stood up out of respect. Everybody said, good morning, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. You open the doors for the teachers. Whereas here, Portland public school system that I was thrown into was, that was a culture shock.
Completely different. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So from 12 is also a really hard age.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of said that was a really hard time for you. Tell us what that was like.
I developed an eating disorder pretty quickly and sunk into serious mental illness. So it wasn't fun. I did not have fun after age 12.
So so the eating disorder, do you think that was almost like a coping mechanism, like a control? What was it for you? So many women struggle with that. So if we can touch on that too, it's
maybe
a great thing.
Defense mechanism. It's hard to tell at 12 what's happening. Maybe related to some medical conditions and medications I was on.
Yeah. Wow. And then when did that start? Like, when did the healing process start for you for that? Because now you're very
Healing is a process. Yes, I do not have an eating disorder. I am not mentally ill. I have really great mental health. I really do.
We all have a little mental, in us. But.
No, but I'm not mentally ill at all.
Yes.
But healing is a process.
Yes.
And growing in our Christian faith is a process. And it's all a journey.
Yeah.
So my mind renewed.
When did Christ come in the picture for you?
He was always in the picture.
Okay. So it was
Yes.
From a young child, you were raised in a Christian home?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
My dad was a theologian and was principal of a Bible college, and with a
goodness.
family who all sang together in church. My brother played the piano, so we traveled. My dad preached at different churches.
Wow. Okay, see, I didn't know that. I love learning these new things. So when you had started that eating disorder and the mental health was going on, was there anything in your family where it was like, we need to keep this under wraps? Or what was it like to walk through that with your family who is very like tight with Jesus? You know what I mean?
Well, you mentioned I don't like being in spotlight. I'm actually really introverted. I process internally. I love people. I can talk to people all day long, but I process internally. So I don't think people saw how, I mean, obviously my parents knew and they did everything they knew to help me. But I don't think they saw really how desperate the situation was. Like waking up in the morning with this much hope to get through the day. And by the end of the day, there was no hope left.
Wow.
Just enough to fall into bed. And so that was day after day, year after year, until I was in my later teens when I started going through layers of healing.
Oh, goodness. So would you say that the mental illness was like very acute depression?
Very acute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, that and especially at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am.
So, but with that, having gone through that, I have understanding. So seeing my children and friends or whoever's going through that, I know what it's like, but I also know this hope to get through.
Tell us about that. But don't let me interrupt you. Keep going with your thought.
I used to say that recovering from an eating disorder was the hardest thing I ever did. I said that for years. And then more hard things happen. I'm like, okay, now
I was prepping you.
We can do hard things.
Wow. So, okay, if that up until, which we'll get to that part of the story later, it was the hardest thing to do, to walk us through what was the journey recovering from the eating disorder and this acute depression. What did that look like for you?
It involved a lot of things: nutritional healing, choosing my thoughts healing.
Wow.
Choosing to have Jesus in my life healing. I even went through a process of going back through my childhood, the different times when I would be in my torturous eating disorder behavior alone, tormented, and then just imagining Jesus sitting there by me, just there. And so reframing it, he was there. I was protected. There were lots of people praying for me. And knowing that he was there just reframes everything and is healing.
Yeah, that is very powerful, especially because I think so many facets to it, but especially you saying, yes, he was there, but you also had to choose to see him there. You know, you had to like reframe. And I think especially in our culture today, people don't want to reframe. They're thinking they don't want to do that hard work. We want the quick fixes. We want to just be better now. So
it's also comforting to stay in trauma, to hold on to what we've been through. So instead of holding on to this was really, really bad, I can hold on now to gratitude. Jesus was there.
Wow. And so about what age were you when you feel like you started to come out of that?
It's not.
It's a on. This is also very helpful because I think in any culture we can gloss over like, oh, yep, I'm better now. Everything is
Right.
great, but you being honest and saying no, it's still this.
Well, no, I wouldn't say I have an eating disorder now,
Right.
but it wasn't just a straight line. I'm getting better. There were ups and downs. Even now, if I'm under a particular time of stress, I don't have an eating disorder, but I have the tendency to lose my
Right.
appetite.
Yes.
So
That makes
yeah.
a lot of sense to me.
But
So,
yeah, my late teens and into my early 20s, and then when I had children, then there was even more of a reason to be well.
they're great motivation for
Mhm.
that for sure. So, okay, so you get out of high school, and then when did you meet your husband? I call him Pepe. Jared calls him
yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
we were
He's
like,
Pepe to me.
okay,
His dad's name was Pedro. So
okay,
yeah.
all right, yeah.
I met him right out of college, or when I was finishing up college.
Okay. And then was it just you guys met and the rest was
Oh
history?
yeah,
You got
yeah.
And then had how many children?
6.
6. Okay. So tell us the kids' names and how far apart they were.
So Jonathan came first, and then Fern was next at 14 months later, and then 3 years later was Hannah. 3 years after that, Chipawa. 3 years after that, Sania. 7 years after that, Nellie.
Wow, 6 children. Did you always want a big family?
Yes.
Yes, that is so special. My sister has 6 children, and I'm like, I just have so much like respect and admiration for big families. It's just you don't see them as often anymore, and I love it. I think it's so great. And then let's talk about parenting stuff. All your kids. One thing I've noticed when we have talked in the past, you are very good at picking out. You see the beauty in your children. You're really good at like bringing out, and you've talked about how each of them have had such a different, like a skill set or like a passion. So from a young age, like when they were little, did you start to see like, oh, they're really,
Oh, yes.
yeah. And you
Yes.
homeschooled,
Yes.
or do you went back and forth to school,
I
or
did.
was it?
We did different combinations of homeschooling,
Okay.
charter schools, co-ops.
Yes. And then ultimately,
Mostly homeschooling.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
was it mostly? Okay. What made you decide on fully
I
homeschooling?
did not want to miss a beat. I wanted to be with my children and see them growing and learning and participate in that.
I love that. You know, honestly, this is perfect too, Joy, because in the past we've had people say like, you haven't had any homeschooling moms on. And I know that's a whole other topic because we've talked about how we try to raise our kids, right? And then sometimes sending them to school. Everybody, and Christians in particular, are so divided on that. But I feel like it's completely up to the parents. You know your children best. Some children are going to do great at school. Some children are going to do great at homeschooling.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter whether they go to school or they don't go to school. Difficult things happen.
Right. And
you can't save your children from every difficult thing in life. You can't control. We do what is right for our family.
yes.
And God guides every family differently. And
Yes.
I was able to homeschool. So
what was there an ultimate like situation where you're like, we are absolutely homeschooling from here on out, or was it just kind of a gradual like, oh, I'm missing them? What was that like for you guys to decide to fully go
I
all in?
started out homeschooling. That's just the way it always was.
Yeah.
And then my oldest son had a brain injury. A logging truck hit us.
Oh, no.
And it relationally, things were a little bit different. And so then I helped transition a couple of my children into a charter school, and they did really well there for a few years, a period of time.
Yes. And then, okay, so they were at a charter school, and then you decided we're going to be done. We're going to pull them and go back to homeschooling.
It all blurs together. Yes.
It's hard to keep track of 6. I can barely keep track of my 3. So,
yeah.
Okay. Was there anything that had happened at school? Like, because I know we kind of wanted to get into systems and ultimately like parental control and what like the systems are in place
when
for
I
that.
started homeschooling my first set of children, schools were different than they are now. And so, yes, now I'm even more inclined to not have my children be in a public school because of what's being taught.
What are the biggest differences you would say from your first set to now?
Well, one of the things now is taking parental rights more out. Children can decide at whatever age that they want to be a different gender, for example.
Yes.
Or live as another gender, or
Yes.
they can choose their pronouns. A neighbor girl was talking a couple days ago about a school showcase, and they can show whatever they want, play something, dance, and say their pronouns, and that was just part of it. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's different. It's not the way it was.
And it's changed so rapidly, so fast, too. Like, if you as a parent aren't paying attention, it's so easy for them to sneak these things in. So you ended up, but that wasn't the reason that you pulled out of the charter school, or was?
No,
okay.
that wasn't.
Okay, man, enjoy. I love this story, and I know we're gonna get into it, but we've had talks where it's like parents often are like, oh, my child's an extension of me, which they are to an extent, but then children do make their own choices. So this is an extra special story because you're somebody who, and I know you would never claim to be a perfect parent or anything like that, but by all accounts, you put a lot of time and effort and love into raising your children. And then obviously things have happened and kids go their own way, which happens more often than not. So let's get into a little bit let's talk about Hannah. Okay. Let's talk about all the beautiful things. She was an amazing artist. Yes. From a young age too, right? Yes.
Brilliant artist.
Oh my goodness. There's something about artists too. Like when you have a kid that is very artistic, there's like other things that seem to go with it. Like, oh, you see that and I didn't even see that. Yeah.
Yes. She was very, very brilliant in lots of different ways.
Yes. Okay. So, and you homeschooled.
Yes.
Until walk us through the seasons.
Okay.
Did you see something from a young age where you're like, okay, we might struggle with this. We might struggle. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about that.
She struggled. Her development was totally on track. In fact, ahead of the game. She talked early, walked early. When she was about 13 months old, we moved into a new house and she regressed. She was no longer potty trained. She started screaming, and it just got more and more difficult. I think it was a toxic new home that going into a winter and having all the doors and windows shut up. I think that some brain injury happened from toxins.
Wow.
But she wasn't potty trained till she was 7. She couldn't go to the bathroom till she was 7.
And you said 13 months? She was potty trained at 13 months. That is crazy. That is so early.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So from 13 months to 7, were you thinking that there was anything where it's like, oh, she might be neurodivergent?
Yes.
She might, okay.
So she screamed and screamed and screamed, and finally it clicked. She's got a sensory processing problem going on. Smells and sensations and anything, noise, anything could set off screaming.
Wow.
Her sleep was disrupted. She had night terrors. She screamed.
Oh.
Inconsolable crying day and night for years.
Oh my goodness, Joy. That sounds like that would be torturous.
Yeah, that was really hard.
Oh, and especially because so she was your third. So at that point, you would have had 4 total or 5?
She was number 3. So when she was really struggling, I had another baby.
So you were dealing with that.
So I had a newborn,
pregnant and newborn, and that
screaming. Yes.
Oh my goodness! Wow, what was that? Was that hard on your guys' marriage too? Where you're like, did you ever have parenting things where it's like, nope, we need to parent her this way, or we need to parent
an amazing husband. But yes, there were days where we just crossed paths and you divide and conquer. You take care of this, I'll take care of that.
Wow.
I don't remember that as being a difficult marriage time because my husband is relentlessly loving. I'm very, very blessed.
Well, you both are a great couple for each other. I think it sounds like you two balance each other very well. So during that time, were the other two before Hannah, so Jonathan and Fern,
Hmm.
how were they in school? Was it something where it was like Hannah got a lot of the full attention because she was struggling with it, with all these issues, or
They don't remember that.
Mm.
I started implementing some therapeutic parenting techniques. For example, when Hannah was so uncomfortable, I would draw Fern into play with her. Like, let's imagine, I would have little novel toys hidden in every drawer of every room so that when I'm on the phone or I'm trying to help another child and the screaming starts, I'd be like, guess what we have here? And I'd pull something
Wow.
out. So I really drew on all of my creative
You are
skills.
so creative in
And
that sense. I mean, you bringing little she at the gymnastics. That's only like 45 minutes, but Dawson, when he was 2 when we started, he needs something that she would bring him like tiny little pouch of toys, just so thoughtful.
I try to keep those things hidden away.
Yes,
Just
little
you never know
trinkets.
when somebody's going to need some children. I love children.
Yes, that's very clear.
Yeah, so I drew Fern into being with her in her and Fern's amazing too and so loving, and the experience to me, I feel like God has used all of these experiences to make good things in all of my children's lives. So I was able to sit. When Chipawa was a baby, I'd sit in the rocking chair, rock him because he was colicky, and I'd rock and rock and rock for hours. Read C.S. Lewis and Narnia, Chronicles of Narnia to the older two, and Hannah would roam around and listen in, and sometimes start screaming, and then we'd take a break.
So you also, I'm so curious, what's your thoughts on gentle parenting, Joy?
What's the alternative? Harsh parenting?
Well, I would love to hear, because you have a style of you try so hard to understand your children.
Okay, there's a time for firmness.
Yes.
There's a time for boundaries. There's a time for restraint.
Yep.
There's a time for all kinds of parenting, but always in love and gentleness.
Yeah.
That's my
I need to be
aim.
more like you. But no,
It's a practice.
I
We all
love that you
practice.
said that, though, because I think Christians, sometimes we've gotten a little sidetracked. Like, is gentle parenting biblical? And yeah, gentleness is one of the fruits of the Spirit. But also, like, how do we train up children to be, God-fearing adults as well, and loving adults? So I love that you said that, yes, gentleness, but we also have to have that firmness sometimes too.
And consistency and all the things, but it can all be done in love.
Yeah.
So I really, really have a hard time with shaming. When I hear shaming, because it's not gentle, it's not loving, but we can correct and we can teach. And a lot of that is done by modeling. So when Hannah was screaming, she wants a fork to eat her food instead of a spoon. I gave her a spoon. She wants a fork. So she's screaming, she wants a fork. Not appropriate behavior. Neurologically, can she do anything different? Probably not right now. So, but does that mean I shouldn't help train? So I spent quite a few years saying, oh, you want a fork? Mom, can I have a fork, please? Sure, Hannah, I'd go get a fork. Here's your fork. So she heard I'm modeling. She heard me say it. And the day came one day when I heard her say, Mom, can I have a fork, please? It was so beautiful to hear. She was learning while I was teaching in gentleness and consistency. She was, I don't remember. It all blurs together. Maybe 6, 7.
So you're getting close. Okay, because I know you said that 7. Okay, now walk us through 7 and beyond into the teens. What did that look like?
Well, I had been doing neurological reorganization with her. So developmental movement that was making a big difference. It was really helping. The sensory processing disorder was settling down. She was getting better. She was potty trained. She had more emotional regulation. But after 7, so she had couple years that were really comfortable and fun, and she was engaged. But I think the medical trauma, not being able to pee because she was backed up, and I didn't know how to help her. I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on, and so if you have that sort of medical trauma going on, I'm not surprised she didn't want to be a girl. Why would it's not comfortable? It's not right. Something's wrong.
Okay. So like, was it like constant UTIs that like she just and you
No,
were
she
taking
just she
just
was so
couldn't-
blocked she couldn't pee sometimes. She couldn't
Oh
go to
my
school because she couldn't go to the
goodness.
bathroom when she woke up.
Oh wow! And there was no answers. There was
Hadn't found any
wow
that could help at that time, and that was for a period of time, maybe 2-3 years.
Oh my goodness!
Not
That is-
intense that whole time,
right? But like
I'm
kinda
sure it
on
was
and off.
uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure.
whole
That's a
time.
terrible feeling.
So I think that young people don't choose this. Every single situation is different. We just can't judge what's going on from the outside. But I think that when a youth decides they don't want to be the gender that they were born, there's deep, deep pain behind it. Gender dysphoria, just like an eating disorder, is not fun. It's not pleasant. It's not for fun.
Do you
It comes from deep, deep pain.
No, I believe that 100%. Do you think that Hannah had gender dysphoria, like pure gender dysphoria, or do you think there was some societal influence? What do you think? And how old was she when this started and you started? Yes.
I
all
noticed
the
when
above.
she was, when she reached puberty.
Okay.
I
And that's
noticed.
when the medical issues you said were starting, was about puberty time too?
No, that was before.
That was a little before.
Since childhood.
Okay, so you're noticing, give us some of the indicators where you and Pepe were thinking like, okay, maybe that's not normal. What did that look like for you guys?
She would start dressing more gender neutral. She chose a gender neutral name.
Now, when she came to you and told you guys, I want to be called this, what did that look like for you guys?
She had chosen a gender neutral name, and we didn't fight it. She wanted to going to the stores and having her go in the men's departments. This is when she's an early teen. That was uncomfortable to work through. Like, how do we deal with this? There were a lot of questions. There was no guidance.
Yeah.
How do you love?
Right.
I believe God created her to be a girl.
Yes.
And I don't doubt that she had gender dysphoria and it was a real thing. I don't believe it was the right thing for her to start to live as a man. I told her once. She took me, so going to the store, how do you deal with that? So there were times when I just didn't go shopping or did some online stuff, but then she went into the men's section, so I just went with her. I told her she looks really good in these clothes. Doesn't matter what she's wearing. She's beautiful to me. And I didn't make a big deal of it. But yeah, she did. She asked to go for a walk with me one day, and she said that she was a boy, that God gave her a girl's body, but a boy's mind, I think is how she phrased it. And she said she doesn't know why. She doesn't understand, but that's how she told me. And so I don't remember exactly what I said. I probably said, thank you for telling me. I said, I believe God made you a girl for a reason. I don't say a lot often. And so that's probably as much as she got. But nobody told me what to say.
Right.
I
It
did
doesn't come
all
with
I
a
knew.
handbook.
Right. All I knew is, so I spoke truth. I believe God made you to be a girl for a reason. And I left it at that.
Yeah.
The rest of her life, I never said another word about what I believed, except how I behaved. So, for example, she wanted me to use male pronouns, and I wouldn't. But I also was sensitive and didn't use female pronouns. And that was really, really hard for her because then she felt like I was treating her like nothing. We had a problem with how to deal with names because eventually she chose a male name. And in our home, a lot of what I said was in our home, this is what we're going to do for right now. Like, not permanently, no permanent decisions about some things. when you're in your environment and you're not in my home and your younger
Right.
siblings aren't, let's have conversations. We'll
Yeah.
keep talking. We'll keep figuring this out. But for right now, at home, we're not going to use male pronouns, and we can use your gender neutral name.
Wow. And did that go over well, or was that very like?
It was really, really hard for Hannah. She was devastated. It was really hard to see her suffering so much,
Yeah.
and yet to feel called to stand firm in truth, and to know that my loving may not be understood. The love that I was offering may not be seen or heard right now, but ultimately it would be.
Yeah. Oh, that's so hard, Joy. But the thought too that you guys were, it sounds like you weren't. Nope, this is exactly what we're doing. We're gonna keep talking about it. We have other kids in the home. I think there's a lot of love right there from not making hasty decisions, but trying to walk that truth and love. That's incredible. So now I want to just ask, because Hannah was mostly homeschooled. Where do you think, and I know we said, like, you said all the above to societal influence. Where do you think that this idea came? We talked about medical, but obviously there was some outside influencers maybe. Can we talk about that? What do you think that looked like, and what would you tell parents to be maybe on the watch for?
The internet.
Yeah.
And not just her exposure to internet, but she was going to a local charter school at the time, and other kids who use the internet influence.
Yeah, and the trans ideology, this would have been probably not as common maybe as it is now, or was it starting to?
It was starting to emerge.
Okay, because I feel like it's been a few years, I would say, like, maybe 2017 to now, where it's gotten really big, but before 2017, I don't remember it being such a huge thing and so many people transitioning. Okay, so what year would this have been?
2016.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But you're right. Okay, so wow. Okay, so you're saying online. If you could go back, and obviously you don't know what you don't know, would you guys have tried to have conversations beforehand, before her going to school, or what would it have looked like if you would have known more?
If I had gone back, I would have done more. My first set of children, there were no smartphones.
Right.
When Hannah came along, this was new. So if I knew then what I know now, I would have not had any exposure to the internet until a lot later. I did my best to monitor. I thought I was.
I'm sure. Yes.
And she was so driven with her artistic endeavors that she needed online to be able to get her references and watch her tutorials, and then it just opens up this world of, and so yes,
it's very sneaky. And kids are targeted for sure. We know that now. So Hannah is how old at this point where she has told you, I'm a boy, I want you to call me these names, and you're navigating that? How old was she when?
14.
14.
I think around that age.
So walk us from 14 all the way to her being out of the house. What did that look like for you guys?
Okay, so
that was
14 is the age, I believe, 14 or 15, where parents don't have any say in the matter. So at this point, she's very, very, very sick with mental illness, like non-functioning, not going to school. And so I'm having to navigate the medical system, hospital stays, residential facilities, therapists. It wasn't an option not to have medical help because it was so dangerous.
Wow.
The depression that she was in.
Yes. And so that system, navigating that, what surprised you about? And you just said parents don't have a say after 14. You're right. In Oregon, I think it is it 13 or 14?
Something like that. It's very young.
What was that like for you guys as the parents then?
We were
You're
shamed.
just kicked out of the room. What is that? Like, what
Yes,
tangibly? Wow.
We were shamed for not
calling her by her pronoun.
affirming her choices. We were given suicide statistics that I've heard other statistics from both sides that are drastically different. So
Did
we were.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean
No,
to interrupt
go
you.
ahead.
You're talking
so
so
they-
much good stuff.
Pretty much, they were saying if you don't do this, it's going to lead her to suicide.
I was going to ask because that is the most common form of manipulation I hear parents who have all good intentions. They love their children, and the doctors tell them, would you rather have a dead daughter or a live son? And I just think, in what world do we project a future that we don't know? And you're right. There's statistics on both sides of the coin to say it with such certainty.
And I've looked at both of them.
Yeah. Oh,
I took the approach. By that time, I'm so standing firm in what I believe is right and good. I'm standing so firm in my choice to love no matter what, but still stand firm in truth. It was hard the first couple times, but I got to the place where I could smile and say, I understand. I hear you. Thank you. And didn't move me.
And at this time, I'm really surprised. I have heard, and I worked for the state, they remove kids over that. Was that ever a threat? We're going to put her in foster care if you guys don't affirm this?
Not specifically that. I got reported to DHS for not having her for bringing her home after a hospital and stay instead of going straight into a residential facility. And it was protocol. They knew that it wasn't a deal. But yes, they have these protocols that parents are supposed to do what they're told, and parents are not told some things. For example, at some point, Hannah started using testosterone. We found syringes in her room in my home that I didn't. I mean,
right.
I'm her caregiver. I'm handing her medication each day, and yet therapists, doctors, somehow behind my back had arranged to get her testosterone as a minor.
Wow. That when you found that out, what went through your head?
It's heavy stuff. It was really hard, but I worked through it each time. Each time something difficult pops up, it's okay. Where's my focus? I'm here to love. I'm going to keep loving, and I'll set my boundaries. I'll stand firm. It's my home.
Yep.
And so I did remove the testosterone.
And was there a fight on your hands because that was she?
No, it hurt. Hannah was hurt. But I also made it clear when you move out, when you're on your own, when you're an adult, I'm not going to, it's your journey with God. It's not my journey. But while you're in my home, I'm responsible for keeping you as safe as I can keep you. And I don't want testosterone treatments in my home.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. So she lives with you guys for how many more years?
Until she was 18. And by this time she's really deep into addiction. We didn't really see it happening. It just...
Was she meeting people on the internet and like having friends that way? What?
In town.
In town. Okay. Did you see any signs of like, this is looking a little bit, we're a little scared. Was there ever a moment?
By the time it got to the place where we knew there was a very, very serious problem, it was too late. She then was able to say, I have a problem and I need rehab. I'm waiting. Even when she said the first time, I'm waiting for a place in rehab, I'm on the wait list. Even when she said that, I didn't realize how significant the addiction was.
Wow. And she was still at the home at 18 in your home?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens next? She tells you that she needs rehab. And then from there...
and there were a couple things that happened, like my son called me one time and said, Hannah and her friend are here and they're high. And so I came right home and what do you do?
Right.
You can't live here and be using drugs at 18. It was I still don't know if it happened again. What do you do? I don't have all the answers. But one thing I did do when she was waiting for rehab and she asked us for help, we said, you cannot live here and be using drugs. If you want to stay here while you're waiting for rehab, you have to be under our authority and we have to have you in our line of sight. We have to watch you round the clock. You can't leave home without us. So we'll help you get to the place of rehab, but you have to be willing to agree to this. And she did. Wow. She was grateful for it. She wanted it.
Wow.
And but I don't remember the exact timeline, but she was smoking on foil. I don't know exactly what it was. I don't know if it was fentanyl at the time, but in the home.
That's the big one. That is.
We took the locks off the bathroom doors and said, you can take a shower, but don't lock the door. And I opened the door and there's the evidence that she had just smoked right before. Oh, no. So we watched vigilantly around the clock until she went into rehab. And we saw her like scratching at the floor, like scratching herself with withdrawals. It was so terrible, the withdrawals. So terrible. But I had the privilege of having her sit on my lap in the rocking. She's desperately craving something. So I said, I'm ready for bed. I'm sitting in my rocking chair. I said, come sit on my lap. I had her in my lap and I rocked her and I put my hands on her head and I prayed for healing for her. Total healing from addiction in Jesus' name. She's not an addict. She was healed.
Okay, so you say she's not an addict. Explain that to someone that's like, well, she was using, she was going through withdrawals. What makes you say that?
She's in heaven. Yes. She did make it to rehab. She went to rehab. She worked really hard. It wasn't a good fit for her. She was in a men's rehab, and it didn't help her the way she needed because she's not a man. And she was still mentally ill. They didn't treat both mental illness and addiction that I could see. Yeah. And so she'd sleep through groups. And if you don't go to groups, you get kicked out. So she got kicked out, and she wanted to come home for a week because she had a transitional home set up for her. And we said no, because she didn't finish rehab and because younger children in the home. But I said, we'll figure this out. So we found her a shelter. Her older sister took her to a shelter that is a really good place that helps youth like her that need a place temporarily. And then she was able to move into the transitional home.
Wow.
So that's where she relapsed, and it's dangerous to relapse after being clean because that's when the system's so sensitive, and it was accidental and she didn't make it.
So walk us through that. So how long was she in that transitional home for before this?
A week.
Was there throughout this, what was your talks with God like? Was there any anger at any point, or was there just
before she passed or after?
All the above. Walk us through that.
No, I don't carry anger. I have every now and then anger pops up about how the system failed us, hurt our family. But there's no point staying angry. It's not going to fix anything. So I let it go. But no anger towards God, because he prepared us every single step of the way. Every single step of the way. When Hannah was 4 and screaming in the middle of the night, one night I prayed, I said, God, if she's going to suffer this way for the rest of her life, please take her. Not for me. Don't take her for me. For her. Prayed it once, forgot about it. Every now and then I'd remember, I'm like, wow, she's still here. She's going to be okay. And she had some good years. Yeah. My husband, too, somebody told him when she was young like that, your daughter's going to die. Just a beautiful Christian woman, just out of the blue. And he's like, oh, okay. And he didn't think anything of it. It wasn't insulting. It wasn't nothing. So lots and lots of preparations. Okay, so when she's about 16, I'm driving in Malala. I come to a 4-way stop. I stop, and I'm praying for Hannah all day, every day, all the time, constantly praying for Hannah. Come to this four-way stop, and I hear God say, she's mine, audibly. And I said, okay. And that was that, the big, great release.
Mm.
I'm going to do my best to parent and to love, but she's not mine.
Wow. Before that, before you heard from the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
was there, because I think as a parent, even when my kids do something where I'm like, and you have helped me so much by letting go of like, that's not always a reflection of me. I did the same thing when I was little, or we all make mistakes. We all choose different paths. Was that really hard to work through because you, especially someone like you who put so much into your children, to have a child that chooses such a hard path? How was that letting go? Like, did you need that?
That was a process
Yeah.
of letting go of pride. No, when she was little and screaming all the time, and I'd hand her, when she was 5 or 6, she would start to lose it in the grocery store and I needed to shop. I'd hand her a bottle.
Yeah.
And I would say, I choose not to worry about what other people think. This is what and she'd suck it and just neurologically calm down. Neurologically, that's what she needed to regulate.
Wow.
So I learned very early with her not to worry what people thought. I was sensitive, but that was a hard one. But I had to let go of pride and choose to love regardless. Because you know what? There could be somebody watching that has similar or same struggles, and they need to know that it's okay.
Yeah.
So no, I wasn't secretive, hiding. I didn't hide it.
What a beautiful example for Christians to follow, Christian parents to follow, because at the end of the day, that's who we're accountable to is God, no one else. And you embody that so beautifully, Joy. Like you're such a good reminder to me. And it also goes into the way how you treat your children too. When you're worried about what other people think, you're more harsh, you're not as gentle. And you just were able to fully let go of that. That is such a beautiful thing.
Very intentionally worked on that for several years, actually. And I chose to not let my identity in Christ or my purpose be changed one bit whatsoever by any circumstance in my life. So very intentionally, even if, and we've had many, I have a couple other children too that have struggled with mental illness. I have had many 911 calls, ambulance rides, sirens flashing, hospital stays, ER visits. And my practice is not to let it change my purpose. So when I'm in those emergency rooms, I can pray for people. Suffer, the perfect place for prayer. So many people suffering in those hospital hallways, walking down the long hallways to the bathroom. Why not pray for the people in the rooms? Release God's love and anointing everywhere I go. So I've changed my focus on how I deal with things definitely over the last few years.
And that was something that, like, when I talk to people about you, that was something that really stood out to me when you were talking about losing Hannah and walking through that and talking about how, and I want you to share the story, though, about how you were able to show love to certain people that would have never came to you if that hadn't happened. And that, to me, is just, like, I'm getting teary thinking about it. Who thinks like that except for someone that's filled with the Holy Spirit, you know? Can you tell them about what it was like afterwards and how you were able to really lean on Jesus? Where did he show up for you?
I could talk for hours about how God showed up because every step of the way. Okay, so which story should I tell?
Let's go back to you got that call, but you had already almost been prepped for.
Yes. Okay,
which
so
might
a week
sound
before,
wild to someone.
A week before, somebody came up to me, a friend, and said, "This is the year that the earth is going to be shaken, and those with a firm foundation won't crumble." I'm like, okay, why do you say that? Bible verses, give it to. Well, I'll text them to you. Okay, fine. So anyway, that he did. He texted the Bible verses. I don't remember what they were. But I went home and I had a conversation with Pepe and I said, if this is the year that the earth is going to be shaken, what's going to happen? Fires? Is our house going to burn down? We've already had that conversation. What if you die or I die? Are we going to be okay? Are we going to stand firm in our purpose here in life to love? Are we okay if something happens to all our money or whatever? Are we? Yes, our foundation is firm. We're going to be okay. So
Never in a million years thought it would be
never.
losing a child. So.
Never in a million years. So that really came to mind quickly, that we had already we had declared together that our foundation together, like not just one of us, God allowed both of us to make that declaration that we were standing firm. Our foundation in Christ was not going to be shaken. But yes, that day I knew something was off. She was already gone, and I just felt her. I tried to apologize to one of the co-op students I was teaching, a teen. Like, was I too harsh on you? Are you okay? Are we okay? He's like, yeah, you didn't do anything. You didn't yell at me. You didn't. I'm like, oh, okay. I just couldn't figure out what it was. A friend sat right by me, and I was talking about praying for Hannah as always. And she looked at me and she said, she's going to be free. And I said, with such conviction, I said, say it again. She's like, she's going to be free. And I said, yes. Okay. I claim that.
In your mind, thinking like free from addiction. And
right. And so that night I woke up. I go to sleep on the early side. I woke up about 10:30 with this dream of fear. I'm searching for something in an attic and just fear, and not demonic fear, just like fear. Mm-hmm. And so I woke up and I prayed. I prayed peace over everything. Peace, peace, peace. Just prayed in and out to sleep for the next 2 hours. And then I got a phone call. And I wouldn't have heard the buzzing on my phone. It was on silent unless I was awake. But I answered the phone and somebody said, I'm so-and-so from the transitional housing. I said, yes. Silence. I said, is Hannah okay? She went by the name Alejandro. And he said, no, she's not. And I said, is she alive? And he said, no, she's not. So then I was able to say right away, I just spent the last 2 hours praying for peace. So how can you imagine making the worst phone call of your entire life and saying that somebody had just been praying for you? I think only God could coordinate that. I certainly couldn't have made that one up or come up with that one.
What happens next?
Questions, what do we do? What's next? Logistics. There's nothing we can do tonight. So you hear those songs about the dark night or the worst day of your life, God really is there, the worst day of your night. Every time I hear of people's difficult times, I've seen it, I've been there, God is really there. The longest night of my life, but God was there every moment.
How did it look for you? When you say he was there, what did that feel like? Where did you see him?
Just a presence. Just a presence. There wasn't any immediate crying. It just numbness, but I'd already known he was there all along, so it's just natural. I know you're here with me.
Yeah. And I know that one of your verses that you've brought in when we've had conversations is God is near to the brokenhearted.
Oh, yes. So my thinking now is, if there's a loss, if there's a broken heart, why would you not run to that person? Because God's there. Mm. So in the month or more that followed, every single day, after that first long night, before we made phone calls, I didn't want to wake everybody up. When people knocked on the door, why wouldn't I open the door and say, come in? Mm. Because God's here. Even Hannah's friend, who was, I'm sure, in the middle of addiction herself, and she came to see if it was true. Yes, come on in, have a seat. Mm. It's true. She's gone. She's in heaven. And Jesus loves you too.
Mm. Wow, that is so powerful, and only only like someone with the Holy Spirit in them could do that. Talk to, I think other people could be bitter, you know. You were a reason that she got on. You were, like, I think it would be so easy to fall into that, but you just showing someone love and open arms, that's as close to feeling the love of Jesus that we get on this side,
Everybody's
So
process is
powerful.
different, but
Yeah.
there's no more fulfilling way to live than to love people. So that's what I did.
Mm. Oh my goodness, Joy. That is so powerful. So if there was, and I had questions here, but I feel like we naturally went through most of these because it's just such a powerful story. And I, I would ask though, if there was something, if someone's listening right now and their life is unraveling, they've been through so many things. There's just so much darkness. What would you want to say to them from the other side of what you've walked through?
Keep your eyes on Jesus. If you don't do that, you'll drown.
Mm. And
That's how I made it through.
yeah.
The only way.
Oh my goodness, Joy. I feel like I'm so bummed that we're out of time because I could keep you here all day asking you so many more questions. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being willing to come on and share your story, share Hannah's story. For anyone that is listening, I hope that this added value to you and helps point you to Jesus, because you're absolutely right. That is ultimately what we have in this life. That is where our hope should be. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. If this brought value, like I know it did, please share the show, throw it in your group chat, and we will see you guys next time.